Yo, I'm here to talk to you about the benefits of being bored. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because a lot of people think that being bored is something we have to run away from, and it's this like negative state of being that shouldn't be a part of our lives and is something that we should have erased as a total thing. And I disagree with that because, for starters, bored is actually a neutral state of being because the connotation or the meaning of bored being a negative thing comes from, or negative emotion, comes from when you start comparing your current state of being to possibilities that are in the future. And usually you think that the possibilities would be higher than the ones right now without any risk. So then you quickly run away from boredom and, for instance, you go outside or you go and check your phone or you do other things that would cause you to be distracted from your current state of boredom, right? And so leaving this to become a neutral state of being, it means that if you actually accept the emotion of being bored in the moment, you don't feel excited and you don't feel depressed. You're just in the middle. You're actually in a really good spot to have an opportunity to think internally to yourself, and you should capitalize on that because it allows you to bring yourself opportunities of new ideas, of new strategies for whatever you're going for, and it will help you build up the maturity in your brain to develop your ideas and make sure they are correctly associated with how the world works, I guess, would be the best term for it. So that's for the first part, is because after you start comparing it, you get that first line of thinking internally where it will allow you to enter the depths of your own mind, and you'll be able to understand yourself better along with anything and everything that's around you, and essentially. Next point I want to make is that there are little to zero distractions in the state, because when you accept the emotion of being bored, this is the condition. Once you accept the condition of being bored and you feel the emotion, you sit there and you realize you have no distractions. There's little to nothing that will actually distract you once you accept when you accept the idea of being bored, because there's nothing that's currently grabbing your attention, and there's nothing that's currently draining you either. And it's this really unique chance to help yourself dive into obviously how you think, and maybe you could even start to see like what's wrong with it and what's good with it by testing it out and seeing what you like, by taking an action of some sort and seeing what results you get from whatever sort of statement you made in your mind, right? And the best way to, an actual actionable step that's quite easy, is grab a notebook like this and write down anything that comes into your mind while you're bored. Just pull out paper and pencil or pen and just write down any ideas you come up with, if there is any, or if there's nothing coming up quite yet, you can just wait for it, because usually something comes up pretty quickly due to our brains being consistently distracted in a lot of different activities. Like when you participate in modern world activities, you develop a brain of impatience and quickly escaping boredom. So sometimes it is hard to understand when you're actually bored, and when you start to begin to see that, what am I gonna say here? It's like when you For example, the best example I can come up with right now is if you go onto a game and then you switch to a different game really quickly, that is like an idea hop, is what I'll call it, where you go from one idea to another very quickly. And that's what usually happens in your brain all the time due to participating in these modern world activities like playing video games, social media, maybe watching TV, then due to even just like work-life balance and whatnot. So, or even just your job itself. So a lot of times you'll end up getting a thought in your mind really quickly, and you'll end up judging it very quickly instead of observing it. But when you're bored, you enter the state of observation much easier than you do with any other emotional state of being. And you can start to write these ideas down and have a lot more quality in them a lot quicker. Yet again, this is only unlocked when you have the desire to be patient and to accept the boredom as it is. So, in a way, this actually acts like an entry barrier to meditation. Because when you first start meditating, you'll enter a state of, I would say, boredom, because your mind's never really had to slow down. So you'll really see the boredom comparison, which is comparing your current state of boredom to an optimized state of being. You'll really see that spike up when like the first few times you start meditating, and this will cause you to oftentimes get frustrated really quickly, which is a good thing because that shows that you're increasing that like brain muscle for patience and being able to go through the motion of waiting, getting angry, repeat, waiting, getting angry, repeat. You eventually get to a point where you have enough time in that waiting before you get frustrated that you'll be able to sit down and think about how this certain thing impacts you, how maybe you shouldn't even be miserable or upset when your attention is on one thing. And then this will allow you to give you like a practical reason of why you should do all this. It allows you to have better focus and patience into whatever your aspects are of life if something is more miserable for you. Or you can think of it as two ways. If something's more miserable in your life, it'll allow you to either, number one, be tolerant, or number two, take action. Because taking action requires a lot of focus and patience, and the same with being tolerant. It requires a lot more patience and a little bit of focus. So combining these two concepts, when you start to analyze what boredom actually is, it is really acting like an entry barrier to meditation, where you can enter that flow state, which is really just a state of where you aren't really comparing anything, you're just observing. You're not analyzing, you're observing. You're not thinking to yourself about something else. You're just kind of like accepting it and just letting it go. So, in a way, I'm not telling you to be more tolerant, per se, but I am telling you to understand that when you're bored, you should actually use that time to write down your thoughts and to explain them in depth to yourself or maybe to somebody else, and see what you could actually do with that. And maybe you could come up with some $1 million idea. You could come up with maybe some cure to cancer, right? All these big positive things, which obviously they seem a little stupid to hear, but when you really think about it, like not about like the boredom, when you think about the boredom, it allows you to actually understand that, oh, maybe this is a lot more possible in our realm of thinking because we're actually allowing ourselves to think, right? A lot of times when you're in a different emotion, or when you're in a social group, if you're in a social group or a different emotion, For example, if you're with a group of friends, you're often feeling laughter, excitement, or awkwardness, or like a weird combination of the three. But when you're in that, you don't really think. You're not, like a lot of times, most people aren't actually socially present. They're just kind of thinking of the next thing to say, which, guilty me, I do that sometimes too, and I'm trying to work on that myself. And then, since the social setting and when you're like doing something else, when you're not like by yourself, when you're in an activity of sorts, you're feeling the emotion emitted in your or internally from that activity. Like, for example, when runners start running, like at first, they're usually miserable and exhausted. But then when you've ran for like 3-4 years, I have experience, it's a lot more, it's more like exciting because you know how yourself works and you know, okay, I can do this. Now what if I go over here maybe and just do whatever and then run over that way and then see how fast I can go here, and you start getting these ideas because you sit there and you let yourself simmer in this boredom, and it allows you to have a much better quality of life in how you choose things, how you do things, and really a lot of things that you would take for granted. And yeah, being bored is good. So go ahead, next time you're bored, try to write something down, try to see what you can come up with, and let me know if that changed a bit. See ya.